What is up, everybody? Keith, aka Gator Guy 231. It's a beautiful Monday here in Tampa Bay, as you can probably not see in my window, but just a rainy day, so a phenomenal time to break down Tuesday's two-game EPL slate. This is a kickoff for a ton of EPL soccer now that we're in a small break for the Champions League. We have slates coming up, two-gamer on Tuesday. There should be two 3-game slates on Wednesday, another 2-gamer on Thursday, more on the weekend. So all the soccer you can handle. I will be doing my best to get previews up for all of them. So if you do want to make sure that you get those, bottom right of the screen is that subscribe button. Please subscribe to the channel. Costs you nothing. The advice is free, and we do our best to get you on top of the best plays. This past weekend was a weird one. A lot of the big six and the favorites really just crap the bed. I do recommend listening to a new feed that we have on the channel, sort of a DFS Soccer Recap with Alex Hooper. I'll try to post an info card to that right now, so you can click on it. But he goes over all the action, some construction thoughts, all those things, and that will certainly help with your game. But I am here to break down some picks, so let's get into it. So the first game of the site, we have Chelsea going to Wolves. Chelsea is a slight road favorite. Let me just say this. I want to get my game thoughts as I go through it. This is like the spot that Nuno Espirito, the manager for Wolves, lives for. Wolves at home versus a top side. He just is a phenomenal tactical manager, and I think that Lampard often gets his tactics wrong. It should be really interesting. Like, this is actually one I want to watch to see how it goes. But Nuno is really good at playing his team on the counter, so we're still going to have some DFS spots for Chelsea that are good. But in terms of real life results, there's a really good chance that Wolves does pull points off of this, if not even a win. Then the second game is going to be where all the DFS ownership and really, a lot of this conversation is going to go, which is Man City. Right now, they are a minus 915 favorite at home to West Brom. I would not be surprised if enough action pulls that to minus 1,000 or above. So look, let's start there when we're talking about the slate. We got to get our City pieces right. They are likely to score 3+ goals. Or even if we saw, not this past weekend versus United, I can't remember who they played the weekend before, but even when they scored 2 goals and, you stack the hell out of them, you still likely cashed, because there's so many shots. We've talked about City pieces so much before that the floors outside of KDB aren't phenomenal, but they often can take so many shots, have so much of the ball that they just get there from fouls drawn, shots assisted. They're not a heavy crossing team. You're not asking Raheem Sterling out there to send in 8 crosses, but he might end up getting 3-4 shots, 2 shots assisted. Before you know it, he's at 8 or 9 DK without a goal or assist. So I think that obviously, it's a Man City slate where there's not a lot of awesome spots to spin up for. So Kevin De Bruyne's going to be 95 to 100% owned in cash. With him being on PKs too, there's really no reason to fade him. He only gets better if we don't see Mahrez, which, look, he got an early hook versus United. I would not be shocked if Pep decides to start Ferran Torres over him tomorrow. So, we're looking like a front line of Sterling on the left, Jesus up the middle, Aguero coming back to fitness, so we could see him maybe shake it up a little bit, Torres on the right, or maybe even Pep just decides to do, we've seen him sometimes when he thinks City needs goals, he'll even maybe try to start both Jesus and Aguero up top when he thinks that, they're going to be able to dominate possession like they do versus West Brom. So I think just here's going to be what your construction is going to look like. You're going to pick your 2 City forwards. You're going to pick KDB. And then I think, in the Chelsea game, that Reece James is one of the best floors at this point in all of DFS. And I mentioned with, Nuno and Wolves, in these type of positions, they like to play on the counter and let Chelsea possess and maybe overcommit and then just, hit Adama on a counter, or Podence or Neto. You have a lot of these young guys. It sucks that they won't have Raul, but you have these young guys that are quick and can really punish Chelsea if they overcommit. So I think that's how Nuno's going to do it, which just sets up beautifully for Reece James to have, I don't have my phone on me, obviously, as I'm driving, but it's something along those lines for like 9 or 10 straight double-digit performances. He's shockingly not even the most expensive fullback on his team. Still, besides not showing much of a floor, they still have Ben Chilwell priced up. And then, Furlong has to be the single most expensive defender on the slate against Man City. That makes no sense. But, Reece James to me is far and away the best defender on the slate. I think outside of KDB, you can argue he has the best floor on the slate, points per dollar. His teammate Mason Mount maybe has the second best at 7,100, who I like a lot too. Again, if we're going to have a team like Wolves bunkering, getting 2 high floor players from Chelsea appeals to me. I think all their forwards, Werner, Giroud, Abraham, Pulisic, whoever starts, are more GPP. As we saw versus Everton, which should have been a good matchup for Chelsea, none of them performed well at all. So I don't all of a sudden expect them to come into Wolves and hang 4 goals. Maybe that's a great GPP spot, knowing how owned the City guys are going to be. But from a cash and optimal standpoint, which is what we're talking about on these previews, I don't see spending up. So realistically, you're going to try to jam in maybe 4 or 5 City, play James, decide on Mount, because if you play Mount or not, that will likely decide if you can fit another City piece. I think that's going to be a big decision point on the slate, or at least for me early on as I'm looking at it, is do I go like a Mason Mount, or do I get another City forward or a City, goal scorer, especially if it is a guy like Ferran Torres. Here's the other, thing that you realistically have to strategize in your lineups is we've gotten spoiled the last 2, so-called City roulette slates. That City was one of the first games, and that we had those lineups and then could decide elsewhere. Well, in this one, they are the second game. You're going to have to make your Mason Mount decision. You're going to have to make your Timo Werner decision. Even if you don't agree with me on Reece James, your Reece James decision early, and leave yourself enough flexibility to have the space for your City pieces later. I do think that, just going over, like not even mentioning a Wolves piece would be a mistake. So Moutinho picked up a red card. What was it, Saturday? I can't remember the day. I think it was Saturday morning. So he'll miss, which means that Pedro Nato should be on a majority of set pieces. He's actually been one of the best floor players in all of DFS, but the issue here is the pricing on him. I think he was like 9,100. He's more expensive than all your City forwards that were on a -1,000 favorite. So even though Nato has a better floor when it comes to having set pieces and things, I don't think the game script, like, he has a better floor in a vacuum. But when you put, the -1,000 favorite, and you put that he's facing Chelsea, who likely will have a decent amount of possession, I don't think that he is worth it. Again, I would not call anybody crazy, though, if you played, a forward-eligible guy on a majority of set pieces who also has open play value. Traore is really good in these spots, playing on the counter, so I think that he's viable. And then Podence is probably going to play through the middle. Sneaky player. He could take a few set pieces, too. So, all those Wolves guys, like, I wouldn't be playing Semedo. I wouldn't be playing, if they played Martial or Al Nouri. I wouldn't be playing any of those guys. Maybe like a Neves if you want, he always could show up in these spots with, like, a crazy free kick or, a 30-yard bomb, that type of player. But I think those are the type of Wolves I would go on. And then for West Brom, I don't think you're playing anybody. Pereira's back from suspension, but this isn't a game that he's going to have the ball to create, space to create, any of those things. So, to me, West Brom's a full fade, unless you wanted to play like Johnstone. Paying all the way down at keeper does work. Like, shoot, if you played the interleague slate versus Barcelona yesterday, I think the keeper finished with like 12 or 13 saves. So, you played him, you insta-cashed, you faded him. He wasn't like terribly owned, but like I ran into him in like a $100 head-to-head, and that was a disaster. So yeah, I mean, I think when you pay down at keeper, your range of outcomes are so wide. So especially for GPP, it makes a ton of sense. But on a 2-gamer, I think a lot of people are going to go Patricio, or you can make an argument to pay up for Ederson at goalie too. Let's see if there's anything else that I want to cover. I really don't think there is. Like, again, like just to recap, this is a city slate. I think you need to go to think long and hard. Like, I'm going to be playing at least 4 city. My likely 2 forward spots will be city, KDB, and then, you know, like a Rodrigo is a fine punt. He's still sub 4K. Maybe you even do a center back. Like, I do think that it's just a quick conversation on city center backs. I mentioned this in our Discord, but you know, somebody was asking, do I take a city center back or do I take a dog fullback? And here's the thing with city center backs, especially if you think they're going to keep a clean sheet. So because of all the passes, they already come in with like a 2 to 3 DK floor just from the accurate passes. Then if you think they're going to keep a clean sheet, which odds would say there's a really good chance versus West Brom, now all of a sudden you're up to like 5 or 6 DK, and then any other stats on top of that go. And shoot, if you had like a $3,500 defender and you got 7 or 8 points out of it, you would take it all day. So I do think city center backs are in play. But yeah, just, you know, figure out those pieces. Hopefully you get it right. I want to thank you guys once again for watching. Once again, Keith, aka Gator Guy 231. Good luck on your contest. And with that, I say see ya!